The frost hadn't melted off the diner window yet when Odalys Fenwick pressed her palm against the glass and left a mark shaped like a prayer. Nobody in Millhaven had ever seen a woman like her before. Not homeless women Millhaven had. Those tucked behind the feed store, sleeping in the church annex when Pastor Monroe allowed it, but not one who moved the way Odalys moved. Not one who spoke in that low, steady voice, like she was reading from a book only she could see. She hadn't asked for change. She hadn't asked for a sandwich, though the smell of Delphine Ashworth's bacon grease was thick enough to chew. She had walked into Farron's diner on a Tuesday morning in February, snow still clinging to her coat like it hadn't decided whether to let her go, and she had said one sentence to the man sitting at the counter, a sentence that would follow him for the rest of his life. "Feed me for 10 days, and I will help you walk again." Garrick Colbeth had not walked without a cane in 6 years. He'd been a lineman once, climbing poles in weather that would kill most men, until a fall in an ice storm outside. Bozeman took his spine and gave it back to him. Wrong. The doctors said nerve damage. They said permanent. They said things men say when they've stopped imagining anything different. Garrick laughed at her, not cruel, tired. The laugh of a man who'd heard every kind of miracle promised to him by every kind of stranger, from faith healers to salesmen peddling magnetic bracelets. "Lady," he said, "I've spent more money chasing a cure than this whole diner's worth. You want to feed yourself on my dime, fine, but don't insult me with promises." She didn't flinch. She sat 2 stools down, ordered nothing, and waited. It was Delphine who fed her that first day, more out of pity than belief. Eggs, toast, a cup of coffee, poured with a shaking hand because something about the woman's eyes unsettled her. Not fear, exactly. Ignition, meeting someone in a dream you can't place. The regulars talked, the way small towns talk. Unsell Whitlock, who ran the hardware store, said she'd probably wandered off from some hospital upstate. Marjolaine Krantz, who cleaned the church on Thursdays, said there was something holy about her, and something holy always scared people more than something dangerous. By day 3, half the diner was watching her, the way you watch a storm cloud that hasn't decided yet if it's going to break. She never asked twice for food. She simply appeared each morning at 7, sat at the same stool, and waited to be fed, and each morning, someone fed her. Not because they believed her, because turning away a hungry woman in Millhaven, whatever else you believed about her, was a sin nobody wanted on their conscience going into Sunday. Garrick started watching her too, not because he believed a word of what she said, because he was bored and lonely, and his leg ached worse in February than any other month. And there was something about a woman with nothing who acted like she owned the room. On day 4, he asked her name. "Odalys," she said. "It means wealth." My mother had a sense of humor. "You don't look wealthy. Depends what you're counting." He almost smiled. Almost. By day 5, the whispers had turned uglier. Rietica Voss, who ran the beauty parlor and considered herself the moral compass of Millhaven, whether anyone asked her to or not, stood in the diner doorway with her arms crossed and said loud enough for the whole room to hear that it was a disgrace, feeding a grown woman who did nothing but sit there making promises like some carnival fortune teller. Said it was taking advantage of good Christian charity. Said someone ought to call the county and have her moved along before she got comfortable enough to start asking for money next. Odalys didn't turn around. She kept eating her toast, slow and deliberate, like the words hadn't touched her at all. But Garrick saw something in her jaw, a tightening, the kind of tightening a person gets when they've heard those words before in other towns from other Rieticas and have simply run out of the energy to argue with people who've already made up their minds. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept hearing her voice. "Feed me for 10 days, and I will help you walk again. Not cure you, not heal you, help you walk again." There was a difference in that phrasing, and it needled at him in a way he couldn't explain. On day 6, something happened that nobody in Millhaven could quite agree on afterward, no matter how many times they told the story at church suppers for the next decade. Old Thaddeus Pruitt, 91 years old, deaf in one ear, sharp as a tack in the other, choked on a piece of ham at the counter 3 stools down from Odalys. His face went the color of a plum. His daughter screamed. Delphine dropped a whole pot of coffee, and it shattered across the linoleum like a gunshot. Odalys moved before anyone else did. She didn't fumble. She didn't hesitate the way people hesitate when the moment turns real, and their bodies forget what their mouths have practiced in a first aid class years ago. She got behind him, wrapped her arms around his frail chest, and delivered 3 sharp, precise thrusts, and the ham came loose. And Thaddeus Pruitt gasped in a breath that sounded like the whole diner exhaling with him. Nobody said anything for a long moment. Then Unsell Whitlock, quietly, from his booth. Where'd a homeless woman learn to do that? Odalys sat back down, wiped her hands on a napkin, didn't answer. That was the moment the whispers changed shape. Because a woman who could save a man's life, with that kind of calm, that kind of precision, that wasn't nothing. That was training. That was knowledge earned somewhere, by someone who had once been something more than what Millhaven was looking at now. Garrick found himself watching her differently after that, not with pity, with curiosity that had teeth in it. On day 7, he asked her the question everyone wanted to ask, and nobody had the nerve to. Who were you before? Odalys looked at him for a long moment. The diner had emptied out except for the 2 of them, and Delphine, wiping down the counter, pretending not to listen, the way people pretend when they're listening hardest. I was a physical therapist, she said. 11 years. I worked in a rehabilitation hospital in Ohio. Spinal injuries, mostly strokes. People the world had already decided to stop trying for. Garrick's stomach turned to ice. Then why? He gestured at her coat, thin and gray, at the boots with tape wrapped around the sole. Why are you here, like this? Because I made a mistake, she said, that I'm not ready to tell you about yet. And because after it happened, everyone I knew decided that was the only thing about me that mattered anymore. She didn't cry when she said it. That was the strange part. Her voice didn't even shake. It was the voice of someone who had already done all her crying years ago, in rooms nobody else had been in. Garrick didn't sleep again that night either, but this time, it wasn't her promise keeping him up. It was the look on her face when she said, everyone I knew decided that was the only thing about me that mattered anymore. He knew that look. He'd worn it himself. Every time someone in Millhaven looked at his cane before they looked at his face. On day 8, Rietica Voss made good on her threat. A county outreach worker showed up at the diner, a tired-looking woman named Concepta Ilsley, who explained, not unkindly, that there'd been a complaint, and that she needed to ask Odalys some questions about shelter arrangements, about identification, about whether she had somewhere warm to sleep at night, because February in Montana killed people who didn't. Odalys answered every question calmly. Yes, she had somewhere. No, she didn't need placement. No, she wasn't a danger to herself or others. Concepta seemed almost disappointed not to find a crisis to solve, and left with a card and a promise to check in. But something in the exchange had cracked something open in Garrick. Because for the first time he heard Odalys give an address, a real one, a rented room above the old Kestrel laundromat on Birch Street, $9 a night, cash, that she'd apparently been paying out of a coat pocket. That, Garrick would have sworn held nothing but lint. She wasn't homeless because she had nowhere. She was homeless because she had chosen to spend every dollar she had on something else. On day 9, he finally understood what. He followed her, not proudly, but he did it after she left the diner, out into the gray afternoon, down Birch Street, past the laundromat, to a squat brick building with a faded sign that read Millhaven, Free Clinic, Tuesdays and Thursdays only. Through the window, he watched her sit with an elderly man in a wheelchair, guiding his arm through a stretch, counting reps under her breath, patient as a held note. He watched her do this for 40 minutes. Watched her refuse the folded bill the man's daughter tried to press into her hand. She wasn't running a con. She'd never asked Garrick for a cent beyond food. Every day, for 9 days, she had spent her mornings being fed by strangers, who mostly resented her, and her afternoons giving away, for free, the exact skill that could have made her wealthy in any city in America. He stood outside that window for a long time, in the cold, leaning on his cane, feeling something in his chest come loose that had been locked tight for 6 years. On day 10, he was waiting for her at the diner before it opened. Delphine let him in early, confused, watching him pace by the window like a man rehearsing a speech he was afraid to give. When Odalys arrived, snow in her hair, hands red from the cold, he didn't wait for her to sit down. "I looked into it," he said. "Ohio. There was a malpractice case. A patient a fall during a session broke her hip. The hospital settled. You lost your license." Something flickered across her face. Not surprised that he knew surprise. Maybe that he'd bothered to look. "She was 78, Odalys said quietly. "I turned my back for 4 seconds to answer a page. 4 seconds. She reached too far for a water cup and she fell. And I have replayed those 4 seconds every single day for 3 years. It was an accident. It was my job to prevent accidents." Her voice cracked, finally, on the last word. "The hospital settled. To avoid a trial. My license was gone within a month. My husband left within 6. Everyone I'd ever worked with stopped returning calls. Like failure was something you could catch. Like standing too close to me might cost them their careers too. So you just disappeared. I couldn't stop being what I was," she said. "I just couldn't do it with a license anymore, or a home, or people who trusted me enough to let me try. So I go where they'll still let me. Free clinics, church, basements, anywhere with an old man whose family gave up on him, or a lineman who thinks his cane is the end of the story." Garrick sat down slowly on the stool across from her. 10 days, he said. Today's 10. Today's 10, she agreed. So, she stood, and for the first time since she'd walked through that door, she smiled. Small, tired, real. "So we start." What followed over the next 6 weeks was not a miracle in the way Millhaven wanted to tell it. At church suppers, it wasn't a single moment where Garrick Colbeth threw down his cane and walked into the sunset. It was harder than that, and slower, and truer. It was Odalys in the back room of the diner, 3 mornings a week, guiding his hips through movements that made him sweat and swear, and twice weep from frustration. It was her refusing to let him quit on the days his legs screamed at him to. It was her explaining, patiently, that the doctors in Bozeman hadn't been wrong about the damage. They'd only been wrong about what damage means for a body that refuses to stop trying. It was the town watching, slowly, the whispers changing shape again. Rietica Voss stopped coming into the diner during the sessions, unable to look at what her complaint had almost driven out of town. Ansel Whitlock started leaving $20 bills folded under his coffee cup, refusing to explain who they were for. Concepta Ilsley came back, not with paperwork this time, but with a proposal, a county grant, a real clinic, Odalys's name on the door if she wanted it. She didn't answer right away. Some wounds don't close just because the story gets a better ending. But on a warm morning in April, with the last of the Montana snow finally giving up its grip on Millhaven, Garrick Colbeth walked the length of Farron's diner without his cane, one hand trailing along the counter, not for balance, just because 6 years of habit doesn't disappear in a season. His legs shook. His jaw was tight with concentration, and when he reached the door and turned around to face the room, every regular in that diner was on their feet. Odalys stood in the back, arms crossed, not smiling exactly. Something deeper than a smile, something that looked like a woman finally allowing herself to believe she hadn't lost everything after all. 10 days, Garrick said, his voice rough. "You said feed you for 10. You gave me 60. You needed 60, she said simply. 10 was just enough to make you stay." Nobody in Millhaven ever fully agreed on what to call what happened that winter. Some called it a miracle, some more carefully, called it grace. Odalys herself, when asked, only ever said the same thing, at that same low, steady voice. I didn't give him anything he didn't already have in him. I just refused to let him forget it was there. She took the county position that summer. The clinic on Birch Street got a new sign within the year, Fenwick Rehabilitation, in gold letters that caught the morning sun. And every February, without fail, on the anniversary of the day, a woman in a thin gray coat walked into Farron's diner and made an impossible promise to a stranger. Garrick Colbeth buys her breakfast, eggs, toast, coffee, poured, with a hand that, 6 years after an ice storm outside Bozeman, no longer shakes at all.
Sometimes the ones with nothing give us everything. If this story moves you the way it moved me, hit that subscribe button so you never miss the next one. Share this with someone who needs a little hope today. See you in the next story.